She was only 4, laughing, spinning beneath the trees. And then she was gone. Vanished into the forest without a sound. With a storm rolling in and the light fading fast, one brave canine dog had to follow a scent and face something wild before it was too late. What he discovered in the shadows would leave everyone holding their breath. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's jump into the story. The trees at Maplewood Grove stood tall and gentle, their green leaves swaying softly in the breeze. Sunlight filtered through the branches like golden ribbons, lighting up patches of soft grass below. It was a picture-perfect day, the kind families remember for years. The Brooks family had picked a quiet spot near the edge of the woods. A large blanket stretched out across the grass, holding sandwiches, fruit, and cold drinks packed in colorful containers. The air smelled like oranges, peanut butter, and summer. Nella Brooks sat on the blanket, watching her 2 children with a quiet smile. Her daughter Ivy, just 4 years old, wore a striped dress and held a stuffed fox close to her chest. She twirled in circles near the trees, giggling as her wild curls bounced with every spin. "Don't go too far, Ivy," Nella called gently. "I won't," Ivy shouted back, still spinning, her little feet kicking up dry leaves. She stopped for a moment, hugging her toy tightly before skipping a few steps deeper toward the tree line. A few yards away, Milo, Ivy's 6-year-old brother, played catch with their father Tobin. The ball sailed through the air with cheerful whoops and laughter. Aunt Rega sat under a wide sun hat, sipping lemonade and reading a paperback novel. The only sounds were birdsong, laughter, and the rustle of leaves. Everything felt light and safe, until it didn't. Nella glanced toward the trees again, her smile slowly faded. "Ivy?" she called. There was no answer. She stood up. "Ivy, honey, where are you?" Still nothing. Nella walked to the edge of the trees, her eyes scanning left and right. A chill ran through her even though the sun was still shining. "Tobin," she said quickly. "I don't see her." Her husband turned instantly. Milo dropped the ball. Aunt Rega sat up straight. "She was just there," Nella said, her voice rising. Tobin moved quickly into the trees, calling her name. "Ivy, it's Daddy. Say something, sweetheart." Nella followed, heart pounding. She pushed through low branches, her breath coming fast. "Maybe she's just hiding," Aunt Rega said behind them, standing now. "Kids do that." "She wouldn't go far," Nella said. "She never does." But the forest was already starting to feel bigger. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was too quiet. No laughter, no giggles, just wind in the trees. Tobin pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he dialed. Nella grabbed it from him after the second ring. What's your emergency?" said a calm voice on the other end. "My daughter is missing," Nella said quickly. "She's 4. Her name is Ivy. We're at Maplewood Grove, near the West Trail." "Okay, ma'am. Help is on the way. Can you tell me what she's wearing?" Nella closed her eyes. A blue and white dress. Her toy fox is with her. It's orange with a green ribbon around its neck. "Got it. Please stay where you are. Keep looking nearby. Officers and search units are heading to you right now." The call ended. Nella looked at Tobin, who was already stepping deeper into the trees. "Don't go too far," Aunt Rega shouted. She stayed back with Milo, who now stood quietly by her side, his small hand gripping her arm. The sun began to lower in the sky, changing from bright yellow to softer gold. Shadows stretched across the forest floor. Then came the first sound of sirens. Soon a police SUV rolled to a stop near the picnic area. A tall man in a dark uniform stepped out. His name tag read, Officer Lennox. He looked serious, but calm. As he approached, the second door opened. A large dog jumped down. Its fur was short and golden brown, its eyes focused and alert. The dog didn't bark or pace. It stood still, tail steady, ears high. "Ready?" "I'm Officer Lennox," he said. "This is Shiloh. He's a trained tracking dog. We're going to find your little girl." Nella's voice shook as she spoke. "She was playing right there, right near those trees. She never goes far. She was only gone a few minutes." Lennox nodded. "Sometimes that's all it takes. But we've got time, and we've got Shiloh." He knelt down beside the dog and pulled a small zip bag from his pocket. "Do you have anything Ivy touched recently? A toy or piece of clothing?" Nella ran to the picnic blanket. Her fingers grabbed Ivy's spare cardigan, still folded near her juice cup. She handed it to Lennox with trembling hands. He offered it to Shiloh. The dog sniffed deeply, his nose twitched, his posture stiffened. Then with one short, sharp bark, he took off. Lennox followed with quick steps, flashlight ready. "Stay close," he called behind him. "He's got her scent." Nella and Tobin ran after them. The picnic and the sunshine felt like another world now. The tall trees closed in. The light dimmed. The air grew cooler. Behind them, Milo watched with wide eyes, clutching his aunt's hand. The day had started with light and laughter. Now, as the forest swallowed their steps, the shadows had begun to grow, and a mother's heart whispered one truth over and over again: just bring her back. The forest floor was soft with leaves and pine needles. Twigs cracked underfoot as Officer Lennox, Shiloh, and the Brooks family followed the narrow trail. The trees stretched high above them, their branches thick and twisted, blocking out much of the fading light. Shiloh moved with purpose, his nose close to the ground, tail straight behind him. Every few steps he paused to sniff the air, his ears twitching as if listening to sounds no one else could hear. "She's been through here," Lennox said, his voice steady. Nella's breath came fast. "How can you tell?" Shiloh gave a short bark and darted to the right, weaving between low-hanging branches. "He's on her scent," Lennox replied. "Let's keep moving." Tobin helped Nella through a patch of underbrush, her legs scratched by branches, her face tight with fear. They had been walking for what felt like hours, but it had only been 20 minutes since the search began. The wind blew stronger now. Leaves rustled above like soft whispers. The air smelled of dirt and rain. Nella's eyes scanned every shadow. "Ivy!" she called again, her voice cracking. No answer. Only the wind and the steady sounds of their footsteps behind Shiloh. Suddenly the dog stopped. His body went still. He sniffed the ground and let out a low whine. Lennox knelt down beside him. "What do you have, boy?" Shiloh pawed at the ground gently, then stepped aside. There, hidden beneath a few brown leaves, was a small orange stuffed fox. Nella gasped. "That's hers. That's Ivy's." She rushed forward, picking it up with shaking hands. The toy was damp and dirty, but clearly loved. A green ribbon still tied neatly around its neck. "She dropped it," she whispered. "She must have dropped it when she ran." "She might not have run," Lennox said quietly. "Kids get distracted. They follow birds, rabbits, anything that catches their attention. She may not even know she's lost." Nella clutched the fox to her chest. "But she must be scared." "She's not alone," Tobin said gently. "We're getting closer." Thunder rolled in the distance, soft at first, the kind of sound that echoes far away. Lennox looked up. "Storm's picking up. If the rain comes down hard, we could lose the scent trail." Tobin wiped his brow. "Then we move faster." They did. The forest grew darker as clouds moved in above the canopy. The warm golden light from earlier was gone. Now everything looked gray and green, with deep shadows stretching across the ground. Shiloh barked again, loud and sharp. He sprinted ahead, stopping near a patch of thorny bushes. "What is it?" Nella asked. Lennox lifted his flashlight and scanned the area. Caught on a low branch was a thin scarf, blue and pink with tiny flowers. "That's Ivy's too," Nella whispered. "She wore it to keep the bugs off her neck." Lennox gently removed it from the branch. It was damp, but not soaked. "Still warm," he said. "She passed through here recently." They moved again, this time more quickly. Nella tripped over a raised root and nearly fell, but Tobin caught her. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said, brushing her hands off. "Ivy needs me." Rain began to fall, first in soft drops, then heavier. The trees groaned in the wind. Shiloh pushed forward, undeterred, his body soaked but focused. "Come on, boy," Lennox urged. "We're close now." Shiloh suddenly stopped again. He sniffed the air and let out a deep growl. His body stiffened. Nella froze. "What is it? Did he find her?" Lennox raised a hand. "Wait." Shiloh's nose was pointed toward a group of large rocks. He barked once, then turned, and ran in a circle, nose to the ground. Lennox knelt beside a small muddy spot and pointed. Footprints, small ones. Definitely a child. Nella's knees nearly gave out. She was here. "She is close," Lennox said. "We need to keep moving before the trail washes out." They pushed forward, stepping carefully through thick brush. The rain made everything slippery. Tobin offered his hand each time Nella needed help. Neither spoke much now. The only sounds were the wind, the rain, and Shiloh's paws pressing forward on soaked leaves. Then lightning flashed through the sky. Thunder followed, loud and sharp. The ground trembled with the sound. Shiloh barked again, more urgently this time. "Something's ahead," Lennox said, gripping his flashlight tighter. The trees opened slightly, revealing a small clearing. In the middle stood a tree with wide roots, and near its base was a small figure, barely visible in the shadows. Nella gasped, "Ivy!" The child stood completely still, hugging herself, her soaked dress clinging to her legs. Her little face was pale and her eyes wide with fear. The fox toy was missing, and her curls were stuck to her cheeks. But she was there, alive, safe. Now Lennox held out a hand to stop Nella. "Something's wrong," he said in a low voice. Shiloh's growl deepened, his body lowered, and his eyes locked on something behind the trees. Nella's breath caught in her throat. She looked past Ivy and saw something she hadn't expected. Eyes, glowing, watching, waiting, not human. The forest, which had once whispered, with wind and leaves, now whispered something else, something that made every heart pound. And Shiloh stepped forward, his growl like thunder in the trees. Rain poured harder, soaking the ground and dripping from every leaf and branch. The sky above flashed with silver lightning, followed by deep, shaking thunder. The forest was no longer quiet. It felt alive, restless, full of sound and shadows. Nella couldn't breathe. Her eyes stayed fixed on the little figure standing near the base of the tree. It was Ivy, her daughter, cold, wet, and alone. "Ivy!" she cried out, taking a step forward. "Wait," Officer Lennox said firmly, raising a hand. His voice was calm but urgent. "Something's not right." Ivy didn't move. Her tiny hands clutched the rough bark. Her dress clung to her legs. Her face was pale. She looked like she wanted to run, but something behind her kept her still. That's when Nella saw them, eyes, several of them, low to the ground, glowing yellow in the beam of Lennox's flashlight. Wolves, a small pack, half hidden in the trees, their gray and brown fur wet from the storm. They stood quietly, bodies low, heads slightly tilted as they watched. One of them took a step forward, paws pressing silently into the muddy ground. Ivy turned slowly and glanced back. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just froze, completely still, as if she knew any sound or sudden movement might bring them closer. Shiloh growled, deep and strong, the sound low in his chest. His body stiffened. His fur bristled in the wind. He stepped forward without hesitation, putting himself between Ivy and the wolves. The leader of the pack, a large, dark-furred wolf, narrowed its eyes. It sniffed the air, ears twitching at the sound of thunder. The rest of the pack held back, waiting, watching their leader. "Do not move," Lennox whispered. His hand hovered near his holster. "Let Shiloh do what he's trained to do." Nella's hands shook. "That's my baby over there," she said through chattering teeth. She's just a little girl. She's not alone, Tobin said gently, squeezing her shoulder. Shiloh's with her. The wind howled through the trees. Leaves blew across the clearing. Ivy looked directly at her mother now, her eyes full of silent fear. She didn't speak, but her lips moved just slightly. Mama. Shiloh barked, loud, sharp, a warning. The wolves flinched. Then the big one growled back. It took a step forward, its body low and tense, a challenge. Shiloh didn't back away. He took a few steps closer, barking louder this time, his whole body trembling with energy. He didn't growl to scare them. He growled to protect. Then, without warning, the alpha wolf leapt. Everything moved at once. The dark shape flew through the rain, teeth bared, claws out. Shiloh lunged to meet it midair, barking as they collided with a crash. The two animals hit the ground, rolling and snapping, paws and fur and teeth all tangled in a blur. Stay back, Lennox shouted. Nella covered her mouth to stop from screaming. Her whole body shook. Ivy crouched low against the tree, holding her hands over her ears. The other wolves didn't move. They watched, frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. Shiloh bit down on the wolf's shoulder, growling hard. The wolf yelped, twisted, and scratched at his side. The fight was quick and wild, full of snarls and yelps and the sound of paws slamming into mud. Lennox pulled his gun and fired a shot into the air. The crack of it echoed through the forest like a hammer. The wolves flinched again. Shiloh pushed forward, driving the alpha wolf back with another bite. The dark wolf stumbled, then backed away, limping slightly. It looked toward the pack, then turned and ran. The rest followed. One by one they melted into the trees, vanishing into the shadows, leaving only rain and silence behind. Shiloh stood still, his body tense, fur soaked and matted. Blood ran from a scratch on his leg. His ears were high. His eyes stayed on the tree where Ivy crouched. Nella didn't wait. She ran forward, slipping in the mud, arms outstretched. Ivy! Her little girl stood slowly, trembling. Mama. Nella reached her, dropping to her knees in the mud, wrapping her arms around her child. Ivy burst into tears, her face buried in her mother's neck. I'm here, Nella whispered, holding her tight. I'm here. I've got you. Tobin caught up, pulling his jacket around them both. We're safe now, he said softly, placing his hand on Ivy's wet curls. Lennox approached, keeping his flashlight low. He knelt beside Shiloh, running a hand down the brave dog's side. You did good, boy. You protected her. Shiloh licked his hand once, then sat down. His breathing was heavy, but he didn't take his eyes off the trees. Just in case. The rain fell harder, soaking the ground. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the empty clearing. But the danger had passed. The storm still roared above, but the worst of it had already happened. And one brave dog had stood between a frightened little girl and the wildness of the forest, and he hadn't backed down. Not for a second. The storm didn't stop, but the fear slowly faded. Nella held Ivy close, feeling the small rise and fall of her daughter's breathing. Ivy's cheek pressed against her shoulder, warm and damp, her tiny hands gripping the back of her mother's coat like she never wanted to let go. You're safe now, Nella whispered. Mama's here. Tobin knelt beside them, rapping, his arms around both. His voice was quiet. Let's get her out of here. Officer Lennox nodded, rising from where he had been checking Shiloh. The dog was tired. His fur was soaked, one leg scratched, his chest rising with each heavy breath. But he was alert and calm. He had done his job, and more. Shiloh stood slowly, limping slightly, but steady. Lennox gave him a soft pat on the side. You're leading us out, boy. Shiloh gave a low bark and turned toward the path they had come from. Even in the dark, through thick trees and pouring rain, he remembered the way. The group moved carefully. Nella carried Ivy, who was wrapped in her father's jacket. Tobin held a flashlight, guiding the way through the slippery trail. Lennox stayed, close, his hand never far from Shiloh, who walked just ahead, ears perked, tail low but wagging gently. The forest was quieter now. The wolves had gone. The growls and howls were just memories. The only sounds left were the wind through the trees, the crackle of thunder far in the distance, and the soft splash of boots in the mud. Ivy spoke for the first time since they found her. "Shiloh saved me," she said softly, looking up from her mother's shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart," Nella whispered. "He did." The path slowly opened up, and through the trees came a welcome sight, flashing red and blue lights. 2 more police cars had arrived, along with an ambulance and a rescue team. Nella let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We made it," she said. A paramedic rushed forward, gently taking Ivy and wrapping her in a warm blanket. Another checked Nella and Tobin for injuries. Lennox explained what had happened while Shiloh stood quietly beside him, muddy and wet, his eyes still alert. A second paramedic knelt by Shiloh. "He's bleeding from the leg," he said. "He kept that pack away," Lennox replied. "Give him the best. We will," the medic said with a small smile. "He's a hero." Ivy, wrapped in a blanket now, looked over at Shiloh and stretched out her arms. "Doggy," she whispered. Nella carried her over, kneeling beside the dog. Ivy reached out her little hand and touched Shiloh's nose gently. "Thank you," she said. Shiloh leaned forward, gave her a soft lick on the cheek, and wagged his tail once. That simple moment, quiet, honest, full of love, said more than words ever could. The ride back to town was slow and careful. Ivy rested in Nella's lap in the back seat of the ambulance. Tobin sat beside them, one arm around his wife, the other holding Ivy's small toy fox, now slightly muddy but safe. Shiloh was in the back of a patrol car with Officer Lennox, getting stitched up by a vet on call. He didn't flinch once. He just rested his head on the seat and let the humans take care of the rest. By morning, the storm had passed. The sun rose over the hills of Maplewood, soft and golden. The town woke slowly, and word of what happened spread quickly. People gathered at the station. They brought flowers, cards, and even toys for Ivy. But most of all, they brought treats and thank you notes for Shiloh. Later that day, the Brooks family visited the police kennel where Shiloh was resting. Ivy walked in slowly, holding her mother's hand. In her other hand, she carried something new, a hand-drawn picture of a big brown dog and a little girl beside a tree, with a pink heart above them. At the bottom, in careful, messy letters, it read, "My brave friend." Shiloh lifted his head as they walked in. His eyes lit up, and his tail gave a soft thump against the floor. Ivy let go of her mother's hand and stepped forward. "Hi, doggy," she whispered. She placed the picture down beside his bed and tucked her toy fox beside it. "You can borrow him now," she said seriously. "He helped me and now he can help you." Nella wiped her eyes. Tobin smiled. Even Lennox, who stood nearby, looked away for a moment. That evening, the town held a small gathering at the community park. Not for speeches or applause, but just to be together. Neighbors shared cocoa. Kids played, and Ivy sat on a picnic blanket with Shiloh lying quietly beside her. No one asked for medals. No one needed big headlines. Shiloh didn't know he was a hero. He didn't do it for praise. He had followed a scent, answered a call, and stood between a child and the darkness. And that was enough. As the sun dipped low, Ivy leaned against Shiloh's side, her eyes growing sleepy. "You found me," she whispered. And Shiloh, eyes half closed and tail resting gently in the grass, gave one slow wag, a quiet answer in the stillness of a safe, warm night.